right, we're going to turn now to the Gay and Lesbian Liaison Unit from the City of Washington, District of Columbia. Chief Ramsey is here along with Brett Parson. Good to see you back, Chief.
Thank you, and good afternoon. I am here to talk about our Gay and Lesbian Liaison Unit in the Metropolitan Police Department. With me is Sergeant Brett Parsons, who heads that unit, and he's going to do the bulk of the talking because he deals with the day-to-day operation. But let me just kind of give you a little bit of background. In 1998, I was sworn in as chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, and with the many challenges that I knew I faced, obviously one was crime, and I began to go through all the different crime numbers, and one really struck me, and that was the number of hate crimes reported in the District of Columbia. In 1998, we had 2 reported hate crimes. Now, I'd like to think that was because of great police work and everybody in Washington loving one another, but I also suspect it was probably due to underreporting of hate crime. And as I began to look deeper into that particular issue, I found that in the District of Columbia, the majority of our hate crimes are actually a result of sexual orientation. I began to meet with various groups in the District of Columbia, gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender groups, and I found that there was indeed a great deal of hostility between that community and the police department. They didn't feel they were getting proper police service, and that there was underreporting of crime, and quite frankly, I had to agree with them. Through a series of meetings, in June of 2000, I decided to create the Gay Lesbian Liaison Unit, a unit designed to pay full time and attention to issues that affected that particular community, and also to help educate our officers on how to identify hate crimes, how to properly report hate crimes, and the like. We've gone from the 2 reported hate crimes in 1998 to 52 last year. Now, that may look like going up is in the wrong direction. For us, that's success, because people feel comfortable now calling us and reporting these crimes. Almost 85% of the hate crimes in the District of Columbia are in the sexual orientation category. That is above the national average, which is only around 16% of reported hate crimes. So our unit has done an exceptional job, and the number of complaints against officers has dropped dramatically. And I'll let Brett Parsons take it from here and talk more about the unit.
Thank you, Chief, and good afternoon. I think probably the biggest thing that I would like to mention and to have folks take away from this is that this is not the typical liaison. Typically, when you hear the word liaison referred to a police department, you think of officers sitting in an office or going to an event and passing out brochures and shaking hands and making people feel good. We do that. That is a large part of what we do, and it's a part we're very proud of. But where we are unique and where we've taken this to a different level is adding the part that the police department does best, and that is actual law enforcement. And what we found is by merging that outreach with the actual law enforcement side of it, we've created something that's never existed before, and that is a strong, credible, respected bond between a marginalized community and the police department, which historically has never been there. Now, you might say that Washington, D.C. is unique because we have such a large and vibrant gay and lesbian community. Well, it's not unlike most major cities and, in fact, most jurisdictions. Just last week, I had the pleasure of being in the company of Sylvia Guerrero. She is the mother of a young woman named Gwen Araujo, who was killed in the San Francisco Bay Area in 2003, I believe it was. Her daughter was transgendered and was brutally murdered. And when I spoke to her last week, what she told me when she hugged me was, I wish there were a liaison unit in my area when my daughter was killed. Because she felt that the police did not respond appropriately to her daughter's death initially. She certainly felt that the notification about her daughter's death was inappropriate. And ever since then, she has felt that there hasn't been the care taken to get to the truth in the death of her daughter. This is definitely a sustainable program because there is not a jurisdiction that does not have this invisible minority community. It is needed. The reason why it works is through teamwork. And not just teamwork through police officers working together, but more importantly, the involvement of the community. Yet another innovation. Actually allowing community members to work side by side, not just advise us, not just tell us what they think is wrong, but work side by side with metropolitan police officers helping us design our website, advising us on staffing issues, directing us to locations where they believe outreach is needed. Our volunteer staff is the backbone of what we do. The police officers then are freed up to do, in addition to that outreach, go out and do the important things like youth outreach. One of our officers will be starting the very first youth outreach workshop in the District of Columbia for gay and lesbian youth. And it's something we're very proud of in addition to the other things that we're working on.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, David.
One of the things that effective community policing does is launch strategies to prevent crime in the community involved. Have you been able to launch any prevention strategies with your community?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Mr. Osborne, part of what the chief mentioned in his introductory remarks was the training that we're doing, not only of police officers, but actually getting out into the community and training them. Some things that are very basic that you would do with any community, talking to them about personal safety, but more importantly, talking to gays and lesbians about their personal safety with regard to the specific issues in their lifestyles, the types of sometimes invisible lives that they have to lead and how that makes them more vulnerable, and allowing them to protect themselves in ways that does not jeopardize their personal safety. Chief?
Yes, Ellen?
Would your aspiration 10 years from now be not just to have units like this in other cities, but in your own department to have this more widespread so that that you'd change the culture of the entire police department, or do you imagine that forever you would need a separate unit?
I would hope that 10 years from now there's no need for a gay lesbian liaison unit, because every single police officer is sensitive to the needs and the concerns. We accurately report hate crimes, and the community has the trust to call us whenever they have a problem.
Yes, Bill Clare.
Yeah, it was noted in last year, I know, when you were here, made an equally excellent presentation, that you were having trouble, in reality, reaching out to young people, young gay people. And I wondered if you would address that in the interim.
Well, Mr. Crane, we've actually made some significant strides, I'm happy to say, in the last year since we saw you. Zenobia Hakir, one of the officers that works full-time with us, has actually sat on a youth at-risk task force started through the D.C. Superior Court. So we're seeing youth come in as offenders and not knowing what to do with them. One of the things that they determined was a lot of these youth were dealing with issues surrounding sexual orientation. And so we've brought a broad base of organizations, support organizations together, along with the Gay and Lesbian Liaison Unit. And we are, as I'm saying, having the first summit of its kind in Washington, D.C. that will occur in June, where organizations from all over the city will be coming over to discuss ways that we can focus our attention, our outreach, and resources on the youth in this community.
Kathleen?
I was wondering if you could talk about how you are trying to transform the whole department, and if you're working with the jurisdictions in the Washington area as well.
Well, as far as jurisdictions in the Washington area, it is even larger than that, Ms. Townsend. I have a list of not less than 13 different organizations that have contacted us since we saw you last year. Believe it or not, Missoula, Montana actually assigned a person to be a liaison, and he contacted us to use our model there. Atlanta, Georgia, Arlington, Virginia, one of the most conservative counties in the country, Fairfax, Virginia, has appointed 2 individuals to be liaisons there. Myrtle Beach, Florida, and as far away as New South Wales, Australia, and also in London, England, they've contacted us. Within our area, we have points of contact within the other jurisdictions who work very closely with us, because as you know, the Washington metropolitan area is really just one large city, and so we work very seamlessly with those organizations, with officers that have stepped forward and said they would like to help.
I think I know the answer to this question, but are there gays and lesbians working within the police force in D.C.?
Yes. My staff, the staff that we've put together, Mr. Gergen, makes up the entire spectrum of diversity. We have out police officers, we have closeted police officers, we have bisexual police officers, we have a transgender member of our staff, and more importantly, we have straight allies.
And can I just add one thing to that? Just recently, I decided to expand that unit by 2 more members. So for 2 vacancies, we had 25 officers apply,
For
which is
within your
positive,
organization?
very positive.
All right, terrific.